The kind of quiet that falls over a hospital waiting room at 2 in the morning is different from any other quiet in the world. It has weight to it. It settles on your shoulders and stays there. And no matter how many times you tell yourself that everything is going to be fine, the quiet keeps pressing down, patient and certain, in a way that you are not. Nathan Bauer had been sitting in that waiting room for 6 hours when his phone rang. It was not the doctor. It was his supervisor. He almost didn't answer. Lena was in surgery. His daughter was asleep across 2 plastic chairs with her coat pulled up to her chin, and the last thing Nathan wanted in that moment was to talk about work. But he answered, because he had always answered, because that was the kind of man he was. "You need to come in tomorrow," said the voice on the other end. It was not his direct supervisor. It was someone from above. Someone he had spoken to only twice in 11 years. "There's been a decision made about your position." Nathan looked at his daughter. Zoe was 8 years old, and she had Lena's nose, and she was sleeping the way children sleep, completely and without reservation, trusting that when she woke up, the world would still be in order. "My wife is in surgery right now," Nathan said. "I understand that," the voice said, "but this needs to happen tomorrow morning." 9 o'clock. He went. Because he did not yet understand what kind of people he was dealing with, because he still believed at that point that the world operated on a logic he recognized. Nathan Bauer had worked at Kellerman Industrial for 11 years. He was a diesel mechanic by trade, the kind of man who could hear a problem in an engine the way some people can hear a wrong note in a song, not by thinking about it, but by feeling it, somewhere in the chest, before the brain has time to form words. He had come up through the trades, apprenticed under his uncle in Sudbury, moved to Calgary when the work dried up in the north, and built a life here slowly, the way most people build lives, not all at once, but piece by piece, one decision at a time. He was not the kind of man anyone wrote stories about. He drove a truck that was 7 years old and needed the passenger side window replaced. He made his daughter's lunches every morning, always in the same order. Sandwich first, then fruit, then the small note he tucked in beside the apple, something dumb and dad-like that made Zoe roll her eyes and then fold it carefully and put it in her pocket. He coached her soccer team on Saturday mornings even though he knew almost nothing about soccer. He had started cooking properly after Lena got sick, working through a library cookbook one recipe at a time because Zoe deserved real meals and he was the only one left to make them. He was not the kind of man anyone noticed until they needed something fixed. The morning of the meeting, he left Zoe with his neighbor, drove to the facility in the gray October light, and sat down across from 2 men he barely knew and 1 man from HR he had never met at all. They told him that due to restructuring, his position was being eliminated. They handed him a folder with the details. 2 weeks' notice, no severance beyond the legal minimum, benefits ending at the end of the month. "I've been here 11 years, Nathan said. The man from HR nodded in the way that people nod when they have decided the conversation is already over. "The decision was made at the divisional level," he said. "It's not a reflection of your performance." "My wife had emergency surgery last night," Nathan said. "She's still in the hospital." There was a pause. It was not a pause of reconsideration. It was the pause of people waiting for him to stop talking. "We're sorry to hear that," the HR man said. "There are resources available through the provincial health system if you need support." He drove back to the hospital. He sat beside Lena's bed and held her hand and watched the monitors and did not tell her what had happened because she was exhausted and afraid and the news could wait. He told her everything was fine. He told her she just needed to rest. She believed him. That was the thing about Lena. She always believed him. She died 11 weeks later. Not from the surgery. The surgery had gone as well as it could have. She died because the cancer had been further along than anyone had said. And by the time they said it plainly, there was nothing left to do but make her comfortable and let Zoe climb into the bed beside her and read to her from the books they had always read together. Nathan did not cry at the funeral. He cried 3 weeks after, alone in the garage at 11 o'clock at night, sitting on the floor with his back against the truck he had not yet fixed, because there was no one left to fix things for, and he did not know what to do with that. The 2 years that followed were not dramatic. That was the thing no one tells you about grief. It is not dramatic most of the time. It is ordinary. It is making breakfast and checking homework and remembering to call the school when Zoe is sick and forgetting, sometimes for a few seconds in the morning before you are fully awake, that the person you built your life around is gone, and then remembering again. Nathan found work. It was not hard to find. He was good at what he did, and word gets around in the trades. He took a contract position with a company called Meridian Equipment Services, which handled fleet maintenance for industrial clients across southern Alberta. The pay was better than Kellerman had been. The work was straightforward. He kept his head down and his hours long, and came home in time to make dinner and help Zoe with her homework, and sometimes, if it was not too late, sit with her on the couch and watch whatever she was watching, half asleep himself, just to be present. Zoe was 10 now. She had stopped sleeping with the light on. She started asking questions Nathan did not always know how to answer, about her mother, mostly, but also about the world, about why things happened the way they did, about whether people were mostly good or mostly not. He tried to answer honestly. He tried not to make the world sound simpler than it was. "Are you okay, Dad?" she asked him sometimes, the way children ask when they already know the answer is complicated. "I'm working on it," he would say, which was the truest thing he could offer. He met Hazel Drummond in February at the worst possible moment. He had been called in to look at a generator problem at the Drummond Group's Western Operations Facility, a mid-sized energy services company based in Calgary, one of Meridian's larger clients. The generator in question was a backup unit for the main processing floor, and it had been failing the monthly load tests for 3 months in a row. The company's own maintenance team had replaced 2 components, run 2 diagnostics, and filed 3 reports, none of which had solved anything. Nathan spent 40 minutes with the unit before he found it. A calibration error in the automatic transfer switch, compounded by a loose connection that vibrated free under load and reseated itself during the cool-down period, which was why it had never shown up on a static test. It was the kind of problem that required patience and a specific quality of attention. It was exactly the kind of problem Nathan was good at. He was writing up the repair notes when Hazel walked in. She was there to check on the timeline, she said. The floor supervisor had told her the contractor was still on site, and she wanted to know if the generator would be cleared before the end of the week, because they had an inspection scheduled. She said all of this efficiently and without warmth, the way someone talks when they are managing several things at once, and this particular thing is only one of them. "It's done," Nathan said. She stopped. "Already?" The transfer switch was miscalibrated. There was also a loose terminal on the neutral bar. It was only making contact under cold conditions. He showed her the repair notes. She read them. He watched her read them, which took longer than he expected because she actually read them. "How long has this been the real problem?" she asked. "Hard to say. At least since the first test failure, probably longer." She looked at him for a moment with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Thank you," she said. "I mean that." He nodded and went back to his paperwork. He thought about that for longer than he should have, driving home. The way she had said it. Not the automatic courtesy of someone wrapping up a transaction, but something more considered. He told himself it didn't mean anything. He concentrated on the road. He saw her again 3 weeks later at a site walkthrough Meridian had been invited to attend. He didn't expect her to remember him. She remembered him. "The generator man," she said, which surprised him into a laugh. They talked for 11 minutes beside a bank of air compressors. He knew it was 11 minutes because he checked his phone afterward for reasons he didn't examine too closely. She asked about his work with a directness he wasn't used to. Not the polite interest of someone filling silence, but actual questions, specific ones, the kind that indicated she had thought about what he'd said the last time and kept thinking about it. He asked what she did at Drummond, and she said carefully that she was in operations management. He didn't ask more. He had learned, over the years, that people in management at companies like this sometimes did not want to be specific about their titles in the field, because specificity changed how people talked to them, and they were tired of people talking to them differently. He was driving home before he realized he didn't know her last name. It was Zoe who moved things forward, as children tend to do. He had mentioned Hazel exactly census, in the most offhand way imaginable. Something about the generator job, how the client had actually read the repair notes, which almost never happened. Zoe had listened to this with the particular attention she reserved for things she thought her father was not saying directly. "Is she nice?" Zoe asked. "She's professional," Nathan said. Zoe considered this. "That's not what I asked." He did not say anything to that. 3 weeks later, he ran into Hazel at a coffee shop near the Meridian office. It was not arranged. He had coffee, she had tea, and a folder of documents she was working through on a Saturday afternoon. They sat together for 2 hours, and somewhere in that time the conversation moved from work to other things. Her years in Vancouver before she came back to Calgary, his apprenticeship in Sudbury, the particular way Northern Ontario looked in late October when the birches go yellow and the light comes in low and cold. Zoe's soccer team, the cookbook project. "You actually cook from library cookbooks?" she said. "I return them before I've finished the dessert section," he said, "every time." She laughed. It changed her face in a way he had not seen before, and he looked away, at his coffee cup, because he was not ready to examine what it meant that he'd noticed. They had dinner twice. Then a third time. Then a Saturday afternoon at the Glenbow with Zoe, who had been informed there was a friend of Nathan's dad's who liked old things, and who took this information and used it to ask Hazel 17 questions in 45 minutes about a display of Pioneer tools that Hazel answered with genuine, specific knowledge that Zoe found deeply satisfying. "She's really smart," Zoe told Nathan on the drive home, in the tone she used for things she had decided. "She is," Nathan agreed. "She also looked at you like you were doing something interesting." "I was reading a plaque, Dad," Zoe said with the patience of someone managing a complicated situation. "I know." He didn't say anything, but he was smiling at the windshield for a reason he had no interest in hiding from himself. "There's something I should tell you," Hazel said. It was an evening in late April. They were in her apartment, which was on the 16th floor and looked west toward the mountains, and she had made pasta badly, and they had eaten it anyway, and laughed about it, and now they were sitting on her couch with the last of a bottle of wine, and she said it the way people say things when they have been trying to say them for a while. "My last name," she said. "Drummond." He waited. "The company," she said. "Drummond Group. My father built it. His name is Stuart Drummond. I'm not in operations management. I'm the VP of operations, and before that I ran the Western Division." She paused. "I should have told you sooner." He looked at her for a moment. He thought about the generator. He thought about the site walkthrough. He thought about the way she had read the repair notes, the way she had said thank you, the way she had asked questions at the coffee shop that indicated she already knew more than she let on. "Why didn't you?" he asked. "Because I wanted you to talk to me like a person," she said. "And you did, and then I didn't want to change it." He understood that. He thought about Kellerman. He thought about the way people had started talking to him differently once the title was gone. Not worse, exactly, just differently, with a kind of consideration they hadn't bothered with before, which in some ways was worse. "Okay," he said. "That's it?" "I'm thinking," he said. What he was thinking was that it was complicated, and that he was not yet sure how complicated. He was thinking about Stuart Drummond, whose name he had seen on corporate documents, and whose voice he had never heard. He was thinking about the fact that Hazel worked beside, a man whose company had an account with Meridian, which meant that in some structural sense, his company worked for hers. He was thinking about Zoe asking him if he was okay and him saying he was working on it. "Tell me about your father," he said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He built the company from very small. He's good at it. He works all the time. He's not cruel, but he can be careless, and he doesn't always understand that those are different things." She looked at her hands. "We are not close, the way I wanted us to be. He respects what I've built, but I'm not sure he sees it. He sees the numbers. He's better with numbers than with people." Nathan thought about that. "Does he know about me?" he asked. "He knows I'm seeing someone," she said. "He hasn't asked much beyond that." He met Stuart Drummond on a Thursday morning that Nathan had not been warned about. He had driven Hazel to a facility walkthrough. It was easier than two separate vehicles, they had said, which was true, and also not quite the whole reason. Stuart Drummond was there. This had apparently come up late the previous evening. Hazel had texted him, but he had already been asleep. Stuart Drummond was in his late 60s, solidly built, the kind of man who filled a room not by loudness but by density. He shook Nathan's hand with the practiced firmness of someone who had been told handshakes mattered. "You're the mechanic," he said, not unkindly but not carefully either. "I'm with Meridian," Nathan said. "Diesel systems and generator work, mostly." Stuart Drummond nodded and moved on, the way men like him move through spaces, efficiently, with a clear understanding of what required their attention and what did not. Nathan was not what required his attention. He understood that. He was not offended by it, exactly. He had met men like Stuart Drummond before. He had worked for men like Stuart Drummond before. He thought about that on the drive back, the way the word mechanic had been used. Not with contempt, precisely. With a category. He had been placed in a category, and the category determined what he was worth talking to. He did not say this to Hazel, but she noticed. She noticed in the way she had noticed everything else, quietly, specifically, without making a performance of it. "He's not good with people he doesn't know how to read," she said. "You didn't fit his model." "I don't need to fit his model," Nathan said. "I know," she said, "but I'm sorry anyway." The thing Nathan had not told Hazel, the thing he had not told anyone, because there was no clean way to tell it, was that he had seen the name Drummond before, not connected to Hazel, connected to a contract that had come across his desk at Meridian 6 months before he ever walked into that generator room. Drummond Group had been one of the clients flagged in a maintenance audit that Meridian's safety coordinator had circulated internally. The audit covered third-party inspections of hydraulic systems across 4 industrial sites. The concern was that a subcontractor had been using hydraulic fluid that did not meet the spec listed in the maintenance contracts, a cost-cutting measure that was within a legal gray area, but significantly shortened the service life of the components and, in certain operating conditions, raised the risk of failure under pressure. Nathan had written a note to the safety coordinator. He had detailed the specific failure modes, the pressure threshold at which the problem became acute, the sites he believed were affected based on the operating profiles in the audit. It was not a dramatic note, it was a technical note. But it was specific, and it was clear, and it had included the recommendation that Drummond Group be notified and the subcontractor's work reviewed. 3 weeks later, the safety coordinator had come to find him. She looked uncomfortable. "I passed your note along," she said. The response from the account team was that they've reviewed the situation and they're confident in the contractor's work. "That's not what the inspection data shows," Nathan said. "I know," she said, "but the account is significant, and the feeling is that pushing it would create a relationship problem." He had filed it. He had not forgotten it. He had gone back to his work and kept doing his job and thought, as he drove home that evening, about the hydraulic systems on those 4 sites operating under their daily loads and about the people working near them. He had not told Hazel, not because he was hiding it, but because he had not known how to begin. The more time passed, the harder it became to find the beginning. The failure happened in March. He heard about it the way you hear about these things. Through the industry, through colleagues, through the specific quiet that falls over a professional network when something goes wrong on a site. And everyone is trying to understand what it means. A hydraulic line on the Drummond Group's Red Deer facility had failed under load. No one had been killed. 2 workers had been injured, one seriously. The investigation was ongoing. Nathan drove home and sat in his kitchen for a long time. He called Hazel. She answered on the second ring. She already knew. Her voice was controlled in the way of someone who has been managing crisis for several hours and has learned to hold the emotion in a separate compartment where it will wait for her. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said. "About the hydraulic systems. About what I knew." The silence that followed was not like other silences. It had a quality to it. "Tell me," she said. He told her everything. The audit, the note, the safety coordinator's response, the months of saying nothing. He told it plainly, and without softening it, because she deserved the plain version, and because he had been the kind of man who looked away when the relationship problem was cited as the reason, and he needed to say that clearly, as a fact about himself that he did not like. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, and then before he could answer, "No, I know why. You didn't know me yet, and then you knew me and it became about us." She paused. "This is going to be complicated." "I know," he said. "My father will be part of the investigation." The subcontractor was his hire. Another pause. "Nathan, what you wrote in that note, do you still have it?" "Yes," he said. "You need to give it to the investigators," she said. "All of it." "I know," he said. "I need you to know that I'm not asking you not to," she said. "I want to say that clearly. Whatever happens with us, you need to give them that note." He had already known that, but hearing her say it mattered in a way he hadn't anticipated. The investigation took 4 months. Stuart Drummond was not charged with anything. The legal determination was that the failure lay with the subcontractor, whose deviation from spec had been systematic and documented, and whose insurance would cover the costs. But the investigation also found that the concern had been raised internally, through Meridian's safety process, and had not been escalated appropriately. The account team member who had made the decision not to escalate was let go. Meridian restructured its safety reporting process. Nathan gave his note. He gave his full account. He answered every question asked of him, including questions that were uncomfortable, including questions about the gap between when he first raised the concern and when the failure occurred. He did not minimize the gap. He said plainly that he had written the note and then deferred when he was told it had been handled, and that he should have pushed further and that he had not, and that he would have to live with that. Stuart Drummond sat across a table from Nathan exactly once during the investigation. It was brief and administrative, and both of them knew it. At the end of it, as they were collecting their papers, Stuart Drummond said, "You wrote that note in September." "Yes," Nathan said. "And you work with my daughter." "Yes." Stuart Drummond looked at him for a moment. He was not a man whose face gave much away. But there was something in the look, not anger exactly, and not respect, but something in between them that had not been there before. "She has good judgment," he said finally, and picked up his papers and left. The summer after the investigation was quiet. Zoe turned 12 and wanted a camping trip for her birthday, which Nathan organized with the competence of a man who has learned to organize things alone, and which Hazel joined for the last 2 days, sleeping in a tent for the first time in 15 years, with the philosophical acceptance of someone who has decided something is worth minor discomfort. On the second night, after Zoe was asleep, they sat outside by the fire and didn't say much. The sky up there, away from the city, had a depth to it that Nathan had forgotten about. He had grown up in that kind of sky and then spent years in the city without it, and looking at it now felt like remembering something in his body rather than his mind. "My father asked about you," Hazel said. "After everything." "What did he ask?" "He wanted to know if you were going to stay with Meridian or go out on your own." Nathan looked at the fire. "What did you say?" "I said I didn't know, that it was your decision." She paused. He said he thought someone with your read on equipment should be running his preventative maintenance program. She said it carefully, watching him. I don't know what you'll do with that. Nathan was quiet for a while. A log shifted in the fire. Somewhere in the dark, an owl went through its question and didn't wait for an answer. I'll think about it, he said. It was not forgiveness. It was not the erasure of what had happened. The note that went nowhere, the workers in Red Deer, the 4 months of investigation and what it had cost everyone, himself included. But it was something. It was a door left open in the specific way that certain doors can be left open. Not an invitation exactly, but not a wall. He looked up at the sky. He thought about Lena, who would have had a precise and unsentimental opinion about all of this, and who would have told it to him without softening. He thought about the generator room in February, and Hazel reading the repair notes, and the way she had said thank you like she meant it. He thought about Zoe asking if he was okay, and the particular dignity of not lying to her. He was not okay, entirely. He was working on it. He thought that was still the truest thing he could say. But the fire was warm, and the sky was full, and Hazel was beside him, and in the tent, his daughter was sleeping the way she slept when she was young, completely, trustingly, as if the world was still in order. Maybe it was not entirely out of order. Maybe that was enough for now to keep going by.